I love the title, The Rats.
The rats.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shall we dive in?
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to Art in Process. I'm Brittany, and I'm joined by...
Rachel.
Hey, Rachel. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Love
Of
chatting
course,
with
my
you.
pleasure.
So today we're going to talk about performance pressure, the Olympics, and we're also going to talk about rats, but we'll get into that. So...
The rats. The rats.
The rats. Oh my gosh. So, did you watch Alysa Liu's Olympic performances?
I did. Not live.
Nah, me
but
either.
I did catch them. Yeah, no, I like most houses, I don't have actual broadcast TV in this
same.
house.
Not in this day and age.
It's 2026, you know. But yes, I did, and I was absolutely flabbergasted.
Right.
I think that's sort of any performance that you don't know the outcome of. It's kind of like a tightrope, you know. You're kind of like nervous for the person and kind of and then incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
That is so true, and like that is something that's so cool about live performance also. It's just that you never really know what's going to happen. So there's just this, you said, this tightrope experience of like, and yeah, like you're excited for them, you're nervous for them. Do non-performers feel that? Do non-performers get nervous watching performers?
I don't know. I think there's I think it might be a spectrum. I think there's a level of like, wow, I don't know what's going to happen. How interesting. I think that's like one end of the spectrum where it's like this theoretical something. And then the other end of the spectrum is like cold sweat, you know, like clammy hands and just like, are they gonna, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure like people who have actually ice skated, that's another end of the spectrum. That's like an even further end of the spectrum for them because they know how precarious being on two knives can be, you know,
literally,
on ice.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
That is so true because I get much more nervous watching opera live than I do other things. And it also depends on the person. Like when I'm seeing someone very close to me perform opera, I'm like more nervous for them. Even if I know they're going to be fantastic, even if I totally am like, I'm not worried about them at all, but I just know that they're feeling it. So like I'm feeling it, you know?
Oh yeah. And then there's a level of, I think like the sympathetic thing, because you know if you were in their shoes and you were on stage at this moment, you'd probably at least before stepping on stage, or you know until the music starts, you're kind of going. So
do you ever get like sympathetic like larynx feeling, like you when it's a mezzo, like for me soprano, I can like feel what it feels like and hear that they're singing, and I'm like,
you know, that's actually really important for teaching.
Yeah.
That sort of like kinesthetic empathy almost. That like I know exactly what you're doing inside, and then having to then go the step further and have to explain how not to do it or how to keep doing it or what.
Yeah.
Like that's the process, but it starts with kind of feeling, oh, that's what you're doing. I know exactly what that is because I can almost feel it inside my own instrument.
That makes a lot of sense. And I do think about that as a teacher, but I just never, you know, made that connection to how it feels watching.
I forget who I heard that term from. It might have been it was an opera singer. She was also I think she's a dramatic mezzo, but she was like, yeah, it's incredibly important, that ability to kind of sympathize and empathize with your student in a kinesthetic way. And yeah, I remember I was like, oh, that's a great way to put it. What's going on? But yeah, like when they're on stage and you're like, oh, don't get tight in the passaggio. You know? Relax.
Yeah, that's so real. Yeah, Alysa Liu. So she like made history, right? I think she was the youngest American to win at that time, and America also hadn't won gold in a while. And then she was like, I'm gonna retire. I'm
done.
I'm good actually. And I heard that it was kind of came about during the pandemic, that she was taking time off because she had to, and then she realized like a huge like burden kind of came off of her, you know, and she was talking about feeling like just like she could do normal things and experience life, which she has talked about as being like really integral to being a performer now for her. And then when she came back, she was like, I want to pick my own music, I want to pick my own costumes, my own choreography, I'm gonna eat when I want to, I'm gonna train when I want to. And you know, she's obviously clearly a really hard worker, a beautiful artist, like a very skilled performer, and so she knows what it takes, but she also like knows herself and kind of taking claim of the art for herself. Like it seemed like she had so much fun when you watch her skate. Like she just looked so comfortable, and I think that's special.
I think that's what struck me initially, was that there was no noise.
Mm-hmm.
There was no noise in her body or her mind, it seemed, at least from what I could perceive. Yeah. It's this like complete ownership of like, if I fail, I failed, and I get to say that was my making. And if I succeed, I can say that that was, you know, obviously there's a team behind me and there are other people working here, but ultimately if I succeed, it's because I put my mark on that. And I think that lack of noise is something that comes from having been bold enough to say enough, and having had a say, their own say in what they're doing. And I feel like a lot of classical musicians, and we kind of talked about this in our previous episode a little bit, about how, you know, we're kind of inundated by different voices in what we do. Like our coaches tell us things, our diction coach our music coach tells us one thing, our diction coach tells us another thing, our director tells us another thing, our colleagues sometimes tell us a whole nother perspective, and we can kind of get straitjacketed in what we end up doing, and it's not ours. It is someone else's. And the thing about Alysa was that it was all her.
Yeah.
Like, even if there was that team around her, what she took out of what they were saying, I think, was her choice. And I think that choice is so important. The freedom to say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to leave that. And I think, at least for me anyway, like I felt like I could learn a lot from that perspective of an art form. We're so caught up as classical musicians doing the right thing, whatever that means. It's art. These people are dead, you know, like, these people are long dead. They're not gonna mind, you know, but it's also like the striking the balance of like, oh yeah, being respectful of the history, because the history is important, but also saying, I'm gonna put my mark on this, and if you hate it, then you're gonna hate my choices, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna like it, you're gonna like what I have to say. And I think, yeah, that ownership, I think we can use a lot more of as classical musicians.
Yeah, it was really stunning to see. Like, it's like truly stunning. Like, it made me stop. I was stunned. And
no, I know. I was kind of obsessed with it. Like, every clip I'd see online, I was just like, what can I glean from this? What can I glean from this? And then the interviews were really important too, because you get that insight into her process and in her own words, you know? And then, you know, it's so like, just watching how she was very clear about no one's gonna tell me what to eat, no one's gonna tell me what song to dance to. I'm gonna do what moves me, and trusting that connection is seen by the audience, because like, I think even if you're not an artsy person, you felt something. And that feeling something of like, wow, or that touched my soul in some way, like that is so important. And I think the way to do that is to put the personal touch on there.
Yeah, the first time I saw her perform, I saw a performance of her skating to her Leve song Promise. Oh, it was just so beautiful, and I cried. It was the first time I'd saw anything from the Olympics and I just cried. I actually think I might have seen her doing that when she did her like qualifying thing for the Olympics. It might have even been
the short program or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so, I wasn't expecting that, you know. I was like, oh, like on my phone I was like, oh, it's a video of someone ice skating for the Olympics, and I was like, like by the end.
It's so good.
Really impressive. And I think that, you know, she won gold, right? And she even, that wasn't her mission. She said, I'm excited to perform. I'm excited because it's the Olympics and it's the largest stage, and that means that I can share my art with the most people, and that's what I want to do. And like, even I watched an interview of her even before she qualified for the Olympics, and she was like, if I make the Olympics, like, awesome, like, but that's like a side quest for me. And it's like,
imagine the Olympics being a side quest.
Right. Amazing, truly.
But I think that is what contributed to her being so grounded.
Yeah.
You know, and not being pressured in a way that is disruptive to her process. And just watching another person, another artist do their thing in that what I think psychological research has called the flow state, right? Where you're completely present in the moment and you're firing on all cylinders and you're doing your thing, the thing that you train to do, and nothing is hampering you. That was so inspirational to me, because it's like, you can do that if you focus on the process of getting to that place, right? Because everyone thinks that at least people who don't understand an artist's journey just think that you kind of arrive fully formed like Athena out of Zeus's head, you know. You kind of you know, but it's you know, it's day after day repeating that mindset or whatever. Like, she's so zen.
Right.
And you're like, man, I wish I could just enter that zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you said there about her the whole Olympics being a side quest thing, like her goal not being gold, her goal being share my art, have fun, and how that is the thing that kind of kept her so grounded. It's so true, and it ties into a lot of the psychological stuff that we're going to get into today about how habits are formed and about how like pressure can really affect your performance. And we kind of see the opposite of that in Ilya's performances in the Olympics, if you saw them too, which were gorgeous also. I mean, he's such an incredibly talented skater, and just you know, his inability to perform that certain skill in that certain moment doesn't mean that he is not good by any means. I mean, come on, first person to perform a quad axel, crazy. But yeah, in the Olympics, his quad was his quad became
double.
a single or a double. Something else happened, and he fell. And I mean, he still skated beautifully. But he talked a lot about, I mean, he said before he went out that he felt ready, that he felt prepared, but he talked in the aftermath about how he felt like it was the pressure that got to him. And it's crazy how that can affect it.
Yeah, I think also there's like there were times in like during grad school where I flubbed lines or whatever in a performance, and if you were to have asked me beforehand, I would have said I was prepared, because what is there to say?
Of course.
Like, what is there to,
right.
You know? And so I'm very sympathetic about that. It's not delusion. It's saying, you know, I think I've done everything I can. But it's that tightrope thing again of, you never know what's going to happen in a live performance that's a one-off.
Yeah.
You know, and when he said, when he kind of did a little, I think, kind of self post-mortem on that and said, I just think it was mental, is, you know, I'm so sympathetic.
Yeah. Because
I I talk about this with my students too. When you're working on an instrument that you can't see or touch, you know, it's, I mean, you can feel at least, but
Certainly.
you can't see or touch, you know, your instrument as a singer. And there's a level of like frustration and disconnect that can happen from that. But also, like, I feel like that same situation happens for the mental side of things, which you can't physically touch or manipulate your mental state. And it's so frustrating because it feels like it's in control of everything. And then when it loses control, you have no control.
Right.
You know, and this, I'm, when things go bad, it's probably not because you're underprepared most of the time. I mean, if you're an artist worth your salt, like, you've done everything in that moment. And I mean, it's just heartbreak, and you have to grieve that performance. And just hope that people understand that you're not infallible. Like, and that's the beauty of things too, right? Like, we're not machines, we're not AI. Right? You know, we are fallible. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from his misfortune, I think, because it just shows us that what we do is amazing. And
Truly.
it is on, for them, literally, it's like a knife's edge. And I mean, that's why when it goes right, it's so special. Right? And when all the chips fall in a specific way, it's really amazing. So there was, I remember someone said, I think it was said as a joke, but I was like, actually, that might be kind of cool, which is that in every Olympics, you should just have like Joe Schmo there doing the same activity. So it would be like me on the ice, just like, like that in a corner somewhere, while Ilya does like quads.
Right.
Just
so
like,
good.
you know, even him doing a double is kind of amazing. So let's put everything into perspective, you know?
Right. Yeah, dude, what if before operas we pulled a person out of the audience, handed them a piece of sheet music? And what if they've never even looked at sheet music before? They're like, have you ever had that dream where somebody is playing the piano and you're walking on stage and you're like, I've never heard that song before?
Oh yeah, I've had stress nightmares. You know, it's funny. Like, it's been a couple years since I've been out of grad school or school in general, and I still have stress dreams like that.
Yeah, really.
Where I'm getting costumes put on me.
Yeah.
And like someone's slapping makeup on me, and I'm like, what am I doing? Who is this? Who am I replacing? And then they're like, and no one will tell me anything. And all of a sudden I see stage lights, and I'm like, that's, I think that's every performer has had that, had a version of that dream, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've also had this dream of, Rachel and I were in Falstaff together, and I was with, the person who played Fenton, and I was Nanetta, and we were trying to get to the stage, but we were walking through like the little back corridor to get to the stage, and the hallway just kept getting longer and longer and longer, and then I would like get to the door and open it, and it would be another hallway, and I could just hear the music playing over the speakers, so I was like, I'm gonna miss the entrance. So we were like running for our lives.
You know, that reminds me of our music director. He, and I'm only saying this because today is St. Patrick's Day when we're recording this. So he, so before we had the space that we were performing in, they had to perform downtown, and it was St. Patrick's Day, and it was completely crowded on the main thoroughfare that leads to the venue, and our music director was in charge of the chimes, and if you know, it's, I think, in the second act that the chimes ring out, and he said he got there like 4 measures before the chimes had to be rung.
Oh my god.
And I'm just like, and that was his way of telling me, stay the hell away from the downtown area during St. Patrick's Day.
You know, I actually heard that happened to Alysa Liu. I heard that the American VP showed up and their party freaking with their big ass cars blocked up all the Italian streets, and she had trouble getting into the venue, and she got on like right before her song. Like, she didn't get her warm-up time or anything. Isn't that crazy?
You know, if you've ever been to Italy, you'll know that the streets are about this wide.
Right. Literally.
I could just imagine American Escalades just like plowing over parked cars trying to get the VP somewhere. Crazy.
How
yeah,
American.
Incredible. It's very American. How do they even get those cars over there? What is this?
I don't know. It's really something.
Wow, good for her though. She's clearly, she's like,
She's mastered it. And
she has mastered it.
Yeah, and speaking of mastery, that was something else that I was thinking about. Somebody asked me recently this question that I think we probably have a similar answer on, but does mastery of a skill mean that you can perform it under any circumstance? I think no.
No.
Because
I think...
No, you go.
Yeah. No. I was just gonna say that, like, I think that's kind of a post-industrial revolution delusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, we've become so... I mean, this is just me thinking about sort of, like, history and politics a little bit when it comes to something so pervasive. Of course, culture, too, but, like, I just think that we've become too comfortable with the idea of machines.
Yeah.
Right, like, I mean, like our computer, what we're talking on today, like, you know, you press the A key, and the A key, you know, as long as it's functioning, will type an A every single time, you know? And it's like, I mean, any artist will tell you they have good days and bad days. And I think there needs to be room for that. Like, there was a video actually on this topic of Pavarotti cracking like a.
Yeah.
Which, like, he's got a third above that at least.
Yeah.
At least. I think I've heard him sing a high D, right? And it was a Verdi piece, and he was in La Scala, which has that balcony, front two rows of the balcony, who are the conoscenti, right? Like that boo you if you do anything wrong. And he cracks that and sings everything else gorgeously because he's Pavarotti. And during the at the end of his aria, like, everyone else is applauding, and you hear ooh, and you're like, you've got to be delusional. Like, you got to be delusional. You cannot expect him to just. And I think that's I think there's like a look at what the human spirit can do, you know, like, look at what the human body can do. Isn't that amazing? We can do this 99% of the time. But if you don't have the 1% to give it perspective, like, what do you know, it's all a wash.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's reasonable to expect a human body to perform every single time. We're not machines.
Yeah.
We're just not.
There's so many factors that can affect things that it's I totally agree with you.
I remember Joyce DiDonato was like talking about around 9/11. She was in this like really cutesy production of Così fan tutte, and she was Dorabella, and she had this like, what am I doing? You know, like, thousands of people were just like incinerated, and like, I'm here being like, la mia Dorabella, la la, you know, and it's like, you know, I wouldn't blame you if your Dorabella was kind of lacking energy at that point, you know what I mean? And I think the point is that every performer tries their best.
Yeah. Certainly.
You know, but
yeah. It makes me think 2 summers ago now, I think, I was playing I was playing Queen of the Night in Zauberflöte, and we were triple cast, and the other 2 queens, I know, on my off nights, you know, the other 2 queens, like, we all tried to stand backstage for each other just to, like, you know, cheer each other on and hear how each other did and everything. And like, both of whom were older than me too, and they came off of stage, and the first thing they said, they were like, where my F's in tune. And it's just tough, right? It's so tough that you're just so worried, like, did I do that thing? And you know, as singers, sometimes we can't even freaking tell when we're out there and everything is happening and you're just like, oh, I'm getting through it. Like, especially if that's how you're feeling in the moment, then like, it's hard. It's so hard. And I have felt that way.
Those two arias
kind of feels like a quad axle.
Yeah, it really.
I mean, not that I know what that
like,
feels
girl, like every aria for me feels like a quad. No, I mean, especially those two arias are such small margin for error.
Yeah, there's so much pressure on them. Like, if somebody who says that they've never heard anything from opera, you sing that one measure of Queen of the Night, they know that. It's like that and the part of Carmen. Like, everybody knows those two parts. Oh, yeah. You know? It's like, and it just feels like there's such a bar to reach.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Just, you know, no matter, I feel like all the opera arias that you would pick out, they're like the greatest hits. And you've got this impossible task of like honoring the ghosts that have come before you, and then also doing something new, and you're like, this is impossible, you know? Right. And so you try your best, and like, I don't know, I would much rather have an F not in tune and have a really scary Queen of the Night. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Like someone who is really just like, I do not want her for a mother, you know?
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the quote, but I think it's attributed to Beethoven anyway, which is that, you know, to play a wrong note is immaterial, but to play without soul or without heart is unforgivable. And I think that's, you know, I think one of the tenets of marketing actually is that like people remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's so true for art too. Like, how did they make you feel? Like, F not being in tune, I don't know. That's my, you know, I mean, as a teacher, I'm like, let's get that F, you know?
Oh, of course.
Let's get that F. But in the moment, I would much rather have the truth.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I understand that, like, was it okay?
Yeah.
What do you think? Especially from someone who's learned the role as well, you know, a peer.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit my focus in that performance was to frickin' sing it right. Like, I was like, this is my first time ever singing this role. I swear to God, if I don't hit every note cleanly, I'm gonna die. Like, and like, I hope my performance was good, but girl, I was white knuckling it.
I feel like everyone who sings, all the ladies that sing the Queen tend to be really petite.
All of the queens were my height.
Yes. And it all has to do with your instrument being sort of relative to the rest of your body, right? I mean, like, you're not going to get a 7 foot tall bass, you know? I mean, right. A 7 foot tall person singing Queen, you know? But like, I always find it so, like, when it's done right, you're like, all 5'2" of you, I want to avoid, you know? And I'm terrified.
Right.
And especially when you see Pamina just, like, cower under the weight of the Queen.
And it's so funny because all of the Paminas were taller than all of us.
They tend to be. Lyric sopranos tend to be a little taller. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This whole thing also reminds me of, there's this study that was called On the Fragility of Skilled Performance, What Governs Choking Under Pressure by Locke and Carr. And this is tangentially related. They were testing these golfers, and they like had some stuff hooked up to them, and basically watch them like do their swing under pressure and not under pressure, and they could literally see like when the golfer was stressed or like was in like a high competitive moment, like their brain was starting to go not into the the stuff was getting disrupted. They couldn't just like do the task without thinking. They couldn't enter that flow state, and they were starting to try to control all of the mechanics that, you know, had become just part of the flow. But it's like if you're singing and suddenly you're like, is my larynx here? Am I doing this? And if you're thinking of all of those things when you're trying to put on a good performance, like a convincing emotional experience, like it's going to disrupt, you know. But it's so interesting, like pressure could do that to you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like every performer has experienced like this layered consciousness, where like one part of your consciousness is like obviously like governing the physical, right, where you're standing, what you're singing, whatever, and then there's like the monologue thing that happens where you're like, is this, am I?
Yeah, it's like you're performing, you know, and you're like singing words in your language or another, but at the same time you can hear full sentences going through your brain.
Oh yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, and you know, I recently bought a new computer, so like I'm like techie right now, but like it's the idea of like bandwidth. Right? Like your consciousness is being used at a level that's really high in order to keep all of these things happening. And in my experience, the quieter my mind is, the more it's not even being in control. It's the opposite of control, where you're in the moment and you are able to focus on the things that matter.
You're able to be present.
The presence is so important. And I think it's this golfing thing where I think I remember seeing here that when you're learning a new skill, it's all sort of in the newest part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is, you know, like if you think about the brain being sort of this layered thing, right? The thing at the center of the brain in the middle is the oldest and the most ancient part of our brain, like the lizard part of our brain. And then as we go out, it becomes newer and newer and newer. So that's why you find things like speech and audio processing and conscious thought and metacognition and all that stuff in the outer parts of the brain. So when you're learning something, a skill, it becomes this like conscious thing that you're doing over and over and over again in order to automate the skill. And then usually that information gets then moved to a more inner part of the brain that is older and more connected to the body. And then when you're under pressure, you somehow undo that coding process. That you know, you undo it so it becomes conscious again, and you're manipulating things about your body. So it's about, I think, how, and I guarantee you that's exactly what happened to Elia. That's exactly what happened to him. He started to monitor his own mechanics, and it's like, why? You know? And I wish there was like a little button we could press. There's like, don't do that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have to talk about the rats now. This is this is the rats.
And then that goes right into the rats.
It really does. So, okay, we had a professor who talked about the rats with us. So let's get into it. So there was this experiment. The rats. Okay, it was I think this was the first or among the first. It was called the Kerplunk experiment, done in 1907, and it basically showed how habits form in mice. And so it showed how that something was once voluntary, as you were saying, like when you're learning the mechanics of something, it showed how that voluntary decision making becomes something that is a habit. And then once the habit is formed, it's pretty firm in the way that you do things. So it starts with, in the experiment, there's this maze and rats have to find food, right? So at first they're trying to figure out how to get through the maze, and they're like going through a hallway and making turns and all of that. So once they're familiar with the maze, the rats were able to just kind of run it quickly because they knew the layout of it, and that kind of became habit. That kind of in the back seat, they could just kind of go along, find their food. But then researchers changed the maze. And so as the maze changed, like, okay, so when they would make the food they would shorten an alleyway. And so where the food was maybe like behind where like a wall was now placed, the rats would run into a wall. And when they lengthened a hallway, they would stop where they were used to their food being and kind of sniff around. And sometimes some mice wouldn't even keep going a few steps ahead to get to their food. They were just like, where's the food? And it's so interesting. And then there's some future experiments that show, like, even when they would, like, punish rats for using their initial behavior, like, they would just fall even further into it. And it's like that thing is so ingrained. And it's like if we equate this to singing, it's like, okay, you know, we learn all the mechanics of our instrument. We learn how, if that's a quarter rest or a half rest in the middle of the measure. And then you're thinking about your character and you got all this stuff. And then if you are in a situation under a lot of pressure, your brain will sometimes start to think about all of these things that you're no longer thinking about. You're like, wait, is this the end of the measure? And you don't need to be thinking about measures when you're, like, giving a performance. But once you start to, like, mechanicalize that process again, that's when you can trip, right? Because it takes you out of the present.
You know, before he ever got to this lesson, I remember, I feel like after hearing about this, it's completely changed how I prepare music. Especially sort of like arias and kind of like scenes or whatever. I remember before grad school auditions began, I had picked a piece based on something that I hadn't really considered before, which was the text. And I'm such a sucker for melodies.
Oh, same.
You know, like a good melody is so good. And a lot of the things that I had chosen before this one aria is it a good tune, you know? And this aria I chose because the text really spoke to me. And I became obsessed with the text, and I really connected with it emotionally. And I remember thinking, this is the arc. I remember thinking about the emotional arc for the first time, and I prepared it, whatever. And it's one of those arias that has got me very far in international stages, because not because my singing, I'm convinced, not because the singing is so great, but because what I have to say is so clear. And even under scrutiny and pressure, I am still connected to that message, and that message is so clear to me. And I remember when he got to the rats here in our grad school class, I was like, oh, that's why. That's why. Because I didn't prepare this notes, rhythms, pitch. That's not where I started. I started with, how does this person feel in the beginning of the piece? How does she journey and end up saying the things she says at the end of this aria? And, like, I am only ever going to prepare a piece that way now. Because we work so hard on the mechanics. The mechanics you just have to trust to be there. You know, you put in the time in the practice room, and you just have to believe that the voice is going to be there for you to a certain extent. But the emotions, and I think we've talked about this before, where I envision it like crossing a threshold. And the more times you cross a threshold into that specific room where you can be very present and connected, and the rooms might be different rooms, right? You're not doing the same emotional labor every time, but the more you cross that threshold and you learn what that feels like, that transition from real world to storytelling, I think that's also part of the whole rat situation, right? Like,
Certainly.
how many times can you journey through this, and how many times can you be as honest as possible while doing it? And if, like he said, if your first exposure to something is notes, rhythm, pitch, that's what you're going to end up with when you're in a high pressure situation.
Yeah.
That's boring.
Yeah.
That's so boring. Who wants to hear notes scrolling by, you know? And it's so... I love how this was like in 1907 before like scientific ethics were invented. Right? So they're just like shucking mice and and freezing them or whatever it is. You know? Horrible. But I mean, I mean, we're just animals, and we can't help it. And it goes into something that like me and my therapist talk about, which is that, you know, as human beings, we go for things that are familiar, and not good. We might consciously know that something or someone or a situation is good for us, but we will always default to what is familiar.
Certainly.
And that can be dangerous too, you know, just talking about life, you know. So on and off stage, when you just let yourself, you know, people use this metaphor in other settings, but when you're sledding down a hill, your sled makes a groove in the snow, and after a while your sled just goes right back into that groove, and in order to fluff up the snow again, sometimes you have to do some work. Yes. Yeah. And it's sometimes really uncomfortable.
It is.
It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I love, you were talking about how part of the rats and preparation and all of that is starting from the emotional truth of something, which we talked about last time is something that I've changed since being in that class with you. Before I really knew about any of this to even consider it. And it's really interesting talking about, you know, part of being so familiar with something is having done the emotional journey of it several times, because before that I practiced a piece a million times and just like thought that somehow emotionally I would be there in a performance after like never having worked on that before, which is crazy. Like sometimes like it's really not taught.
No, and I think there's a lot of misconception out there about that. Like, do the work in the practice room and then, you know, wait for inspiration to hit you on stage. And I'm like,
what? You're not going to be open to inspiration if you're freaking out, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's what our instructor was trying to get at too, which is that like, that emotional journey is also part of your practice.
Yes.
Right? Connecting with it, however you connect with it, whether it's you reading the poem beforehand or, you know, you mapping things out or visualizing yourself go through it or whatever process you have to connect with it emotionally and be aware of what that feels like in the body too.
Yeah.
You know, because emotions feel a certain way in the body. And then, of course, we have that added layer of, like, how do you maintain homeostasis enough in the body to be able to phonate and do our jobs, right? And so it's like, you know, going there, feeling it, and then drawing the line somewhere so you know you're safe.
Yeah. And,
yeah, I think that's one of the balancing acts. But, yeah, I mean, inspiration doesn't strike on stage.
No.
Like, it's the most precarious time, right? You're on that proverbial knife's edge when you're on stage. And I truly believe that connections are made when you are at rest.
Yes. Connections
and inspiration and all that stuff, I think, is happening when you have room and space and ease to explore. And I think that exploration needs to happen away from stage. And not to say that inspiration doesn't strike in the moment ever. Like, I've definitely had moments where, you know, oh, I never did this, but I felt compelled to do this. I remember there's you and I have both watched Hamnet. There's it's so good. That horrific scene, spoilers. Okay.
Spoilers for Hamnet.
Spoilers for Hamnet, y'all. Okay, you've been thoroughly warned. It's been out since Thanksgiving. Okay.
Get
so
over it.
Yeah, get over it. But Hamnet dies, and Jessie Buckley just lets out this wail. just this scream from her gut. And in an interview I was listening to on NPR, she was like, oh yeah, that wasn't scripted. I just felt that was in the moment very true to what my character would be feeling. And you have to leave room for inspiration to strike in the moment and to move you. But I get why the Greeks were like, yes, muses, they're these like ethereal things that come and visit you once in a while. I love that personification where they kind of go, I'm here for a second, I'll be gone. But it's really fascinating. And I see how it's often kind of like the whole muses thing is often combined with the divine, right? The idea of inspiration being touched by something and all that. But yeah, you have to be open to all of it.
I with inspiration, I feel so. I'm doing The Artist's Way right now, which is a book by Julia Cameron, and it's kind of set up to be a 12-week course, and it's about kind of recovering your creativity, especially if you are feeling creatively blocked in some way. And a lot of the book is her trying to get you to get yourself to, one, work through any creative blocks or personal blocks that may be stopping you from creating, like a trauma of sorts. And a lot of it is about just tuning in and listening. And a lot of it has been compared to like, there's always like something, there's always a signal, and if you're just like tuning the radio station into the right one, that and you have to show up to tune the dial. You can't just expect it to come to you. And related to that, there's a quote that's in the chapter that I love, in the chapter I'm doing right now, and it's creativity lies in great paradox. Serious, it's something like this: serious work comes from serious play. And that goes back to Alysa Liu. Like, she's playing, like she's having fun in that. And I feel like it's especially in a lot of art forms, especially once you've been in school and studied them and everything, there's a lot of stories about people going to school for art and then not touching it again for many years because it's beaten the creativity out of you, or whatever. There's a lot of stuff to that, but sometimes it can be hard to play when you're so worried about perfection. And sometimes it's like you said, the emotional truth is decentered, and it's something else that people start to work towards. And I'm kind of wondering, like, where do you find play in your art, and like how do you tap into that, or like what are your favorite things to go to?
I think the Artist's Way, what you mentioned about serious work being serious play, and I don't want people, I think the word serious can mislead people. I think it's the intensity with which you do something,
yes,
the devotion with which you do something, and I think it all has to do with suspension of disbelief in any art form. Like, I mean, I think it's easier to think about when you're like, oh yeah, it's fantasy, or like in a genre or whatever. Yeah, of course you have to suspend disbelief to believe in magic and all that stuff. But in anything, I think there's a suspension of disbelief. Any kind of make-believe. I remember seeing an interview about the cinematographer for Sinners, and she's like, it's all make-believe. And we're trying to make it as believable as possible, but we're just playing. And I think that is so important in any art, to think both that I am doing this with the utmost intention and I believe in what I'm doing is infectious. I think that is, people feel it even though maybe they're not artists themselves, or they don't engage with art in that way, but I think people feel it. And that's the thing with Alysa, I think. The intensity with which she does this is like, I buy into this, I'm in it, I'm rooting for her. And that's so important. But also, I think play comes from, I write, so I have fake people in my brain.
Same.
I have fake people talking to each other. It's a very schizophrenic experience. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes from the idea of interaction, like doing this process with other people, or bringing them into your process, or even if your fictional characters are in communion with each other, like it is about interaction and how other people affect you ultimately. And I think the idea of writing the great American novel up in a mountain somewhere in a cabin by myself, is such a postmodern delusion. Like, I don't think, like, think about, I remember Sally Rooney saying this. She's like, this idea that, like, oh, I don't need anyone to love me. I just need myself to love me. And she's like, that's a delusion. The idea that you live this hyper individualistic life is a delusion. People pick your food. People make the clothes you wear. People have built the roads you drive on or go to work on. Like, you live in community and you don't know it. And in any given novel, there's a whole team of people. In any given opera, there's a whole team of people making it possible. And I think my sense of play comes from connecting with all of those different people.
Yeah.
Teamwork to make this one thing make believe. And it's, why have human beings almost in every single culture come up with music and come up with theater?
Yeah.
And all these things we do together. And like, very rarely do people make music on their own. I mean, even the most solo aria in and of itself is not solo. You have a whole orchestra under. You have a conductor telling you when to come in. Like you have people lighting you. I mean, it's in community, and I find that to be the most important. I'm definitely an extrovert.
Yeah.
Like, I like my alone time. Don't get me wrong. I find it great, but I need to be around people, and I need to see people and work with people and share with people. And I find that so important.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. I love the communal aspects of classical music and music in general as well. I mean, that's so fun, and it's so, I don't want to say unique, because it isn't. I mean, that's part of a lot of art, as you said. There's often a team in all of it. But it's like an aria that you're singing, you're not going to perform that a cappella. There's always somebody else. And I will say some of the most fun that I have had on stage has been in communication with someone else. Like, my pianist in grad school who I worked with, loved working with her. And we would talk about a piece, and it's like, oh, that little motif that you play right there, that's this thing, or that's this emotion. And then, like, in performance, I would hear her bring that out, or maybe do something a little differently. And it was like our ability to play, and it's because we got to play so much in the practice room, like, we became comfortable. And then, like, performing with her was like, it was such a unique experience for me. Like, I've had fantastic collaborators before, but I would say, like, that was a really special collaboration.
But I think that goes back to the idea of ownership.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in this case, it's co-ownership of a performance between you and your pianist. But that kind of chemistry is rare.
Yeah, it is.
And it's so important to find someone that you vibe with on that frequency, and being able to talk about something and like agree and disagree and say, this I think is this. And I remember that performance of Karonome that you guys did, and I was like, oh my God, they're just the both of you. And it was amazing because it was like this great conversation, and it was this moment of like, oh, they're communicating without ever talking to each other. And you guys have talked, obviously, like you guys have talked in the practice room, but right now there's this like secret communication happening between the two of you, and that is so magical. It's kind of like when a string quartet, I've been kind of obsessed with this one Ravel string quartet recently, and my roommates are sick of me humming it. But like where they all are ready on their instruments, and the first violinist, the leader, is like, and it's just that breath, and it's that breath is the source of everything. And it was really important for me to see the two of you converse in that way.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like,
that.
what a pianist, what a vocalist. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I saw her perform with another vocalist in my studio, and I similarly felt during their performance that I was like, oh, they're talking. Like they're talking. And I would say like most of the time you don't get that. Even if you have a good collaborator, like sometimes you don't have a lot of time to work together, you don't have a built up relationship, and it's just kind of like, all right, you do this, I do this, I'm gonna breathe here, give me some time. Okay, great. And you don't get to like
the nuts and bolts. I mean, that's any given audition, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in and out in 15 minutes, and you just have to be like, okay, nuts and bolts. Let's just give me what you got, you know? But yeah, but you had the luxury of time, and space to create together.
Yeah.
And look what a little bit of time can do for us artists.
Right.
You know?
And you were talking about breath in string quartet. I even remember like we were doing some like pieces during my recital that were very modern, and honestly I was doing my darndest to count, but it, it was a lot, and I can't be counting in performance. And there were some times where it was like, okay, I'm gonna listen for you to breathe, and like I would listen for her to breathe in a performance, and she would give me and I would hear, okay, like, and it was just like, oh,
I love that.
I
love that.
And it was like, I wasn't even thinking about like, okay, her breath is 1 and then I am 2. It was kind of like she breathes and then I pick up the flow, I
love that. It's like some like platonic ideal, the idea of shared burden and like common goal, and it's great. And I remember we're in a world of turmoil at the moment. Oh, yeah. Not to laugh at it, but I'm just kind of like, if I'm not laughing, I'm crying, so I gotta laugh at it. Joyce DiDonato once said that the opposite of war is not peace, it's creation. And that's when you're creating something, you're not fighting. When you're creating something together, you have a shared goal, and when you spend enough time with each other on a project, you can't help it. You start to realize someone's humanity. Yeah. And you can't drop a bomb on humans. And I just think that so much of this world would be a better place if we thought about the world as something to create on instead of something to be dominated and controlled. And it's a real shame. I mean, there's so much potential.
Even that is like an extrapolation on this whole metaphor, right, of like dominating the music, like needing to have it perfected and like within your grasp, versus like, we're going to create something here. Like, it changes the whole trajectory of a performance, of a piece of art, of a society, a community, a world. It's just like a more holistic way to exist in something.
I think when it comes to music too, there's this like misconception that because it's written in ink on a piece of paper that it is immovable and that it is done. It's not done. It's not done because you, the performer, will never have a version of that solidness. Like, there's no solidity to what you do. It is different day to day. Your high notes are not going to sound the same Tuesday to Wednesday. Like, it's not going to be the same, and the way you feel about a subject is going to change. It's never done. And I think if people can get away from the idea of this, like, even the way we talk about like our Aria package, you know, like this thing that needs to be perfected so people can hire you. I'm truly a believer that before recordings existed, there was a lot more room for variation and failure, and a bad day. But the moment recordings came into play, it became so expensive. You know, getting all the musicians together, the recording technology and all that, it is so expensive that you start to say, I'm only going to record the best of the best. And then somehow that became the standard. And I'm not saying let's not be excellent. I'm just saying that I think people have stopped listening for truth and have started listening for a product.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the idea of sort of industrial revolution capitalism, but like, like, how can I sell you? And I cannot tell you how many times I've been told, you are the product.
Right. And that's like kind of gross.
I'm not in cellophane, you know? It is kind of gross. I'm not in cellophane. Like, you can't put me on a shelf to be picked up. But that's how the industry works. And I am fundamentally opposed to that kind of commodification of what we do. And I don't know what the solution is in a capitalistic world where everything has to make money and you gotta eat. But I think devaluing people into products is probably not it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's shouldn't be a hot take.
I agree. My humanity is not a hot
Honestly.
take. Let's say that. Yeah. And like, how many times have we witnessed, you know, other singers and maybe ourselves even, you know, devaluing someone for not being as good at something or having a bad day or whatever. Like, I went through a whole phase in grad school where I didn't want to talk to people who I didn't deem as good, and I was like, what am I becoming? Who am I? This is not who I am. Like, a person's value does not depend on how good their high notes are or how good their low notes are, whatever. Like, would I want to be devalued that way? No. And I've had people do that, and it doesn't feel good, you know. And I'm a human being first, and therefore that's all you need to be a human, just to be a living thing on this planet, to deserve respect and be given value. And I think so many musicians tie their value to their skills or their output, or, you know, and it's like, no, dude, you have inherent value. And I think operating from that baseline is so important. Yeah.
I think that's a great place to stop. Like, what else is there to say? If that's it, that's it right there.
That's the gist of it. We got there.
That's it. Damn. Well, thanks for chatting with me. Truly.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun, as always.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone who may have tuned in.
Yes.
We'll chat with you soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Have fun making art. Make art.
You too. Everyone, get out there, make something.
Do it.
Do it.